who wins in a fight to the death, or maybe in a sport competition setting, but let's go with a fight to the death. A grizzly bear, a silverback gorilla, and maybe a lion or a tiger, an African lion, or one of the flavors of tiger. I don't know who you think is more ferocious. What are the parameters to consider here? Maybe I can throw a few out, and maybe you can give me some thoughts about how much of these parameters matter. So first of all, intelligence. I do believe the gorilla is the most intelligent. I've did research for this, as you can imagine.
Solo or with Joe Rogan?
The expert advisor to this very podcast on this very topic is indeed Joe Rogan. Yes. So in captivity, gorillas have been documented to show complex emotions, form family bonds, the ability to use tools, and to be able to reason about the past and the future.
That's impressive.
So that's something that, at least in captivity, the other animals have not been able to do.
They already sound much more advanced than I am.
Yeah, so that's intelligence. Then there is weight. I think that's something that you think of at first. The lion, let's go with the big ones. I took notes here. 550 pounds for a big lion.
That's exceptionally large. Like most male lions are around 450 pounds. That's an exceptional beast then.
Thank you. The tiger can be larger than that.
Yeah, much larger.
So we got the grizzly bear, which is probably the biggest of the bunch. At the large ones get to 1,500 pounds. Correct me if some of this numbers.
I believe most grizzlies are around 1,000-pound mark. It's a big beast.
Well, I was looking up the biggest, but I didn't want to do the biggest ever. Just what are the big, like the top of the range, because there's always a range.
You can put it in at roughly double that of even a very big lion.
Of course, how that weight is used is very important. So there's also things which I find is interesting is anaconda. Let me throw that in there because it's 200 pounds. What I really like about that is it's not just the weight, it's the form factor. And I think out of all of these, the anaconda is the most non-standard form factor.
I totally agree with that. Yeah,
so that can be used.
It's like the knight on the chessboard. It comes in from a completely different angle.
So we got that. We got also strength which could be measured in ability to carry stuff. So this was surprising to me. I did look into this carefully. The grizzly bear at 1,000 or 1,500 pounds can only carry at most its body weight, which is a lot. But a gorilla can carry 10 times its body weight. A gorilla can lift over 2,000 kilograms. So that's over 4,000 pounds.
And gorillas themselves, an adult male weighs in around 350 to 400.
400 pounds, yes. So I like how in this particular place where I found this, 2,000 kilograms is as heavy as 30 average humans. So a gorilla can carry 30 humans. So that's carrying strength. And then, of course, bite force, because that's one of the weapons in question here. So now this is really surprising to me. The gorilla has won me over through this, by the way. Intelligence, I'm a sucker for intelligence, but the gorilla bite force is the highest of all these with 1,300 psi. Bear is second with 1,200 psi. Tiger is third. I think tiger and lion is third with 1,000 psi. That's comparable. And a bear is anywhere from 900 to 1,000 psi. They're close, but gorilla, I would not have expected. Now, gorilla is not a carnivore. Yeah. But apparently it mostly eats grassy stuff.
Right.
But
it's difficult to explain why it has such a powerful bite. And it also, of course, has very large incisor teeth as well as chewing teeth. So
also no neck.
Yeah.
So
its neck begins at the top of its head and just goes down to the shoulders. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the way they use their teeth, all of these animals, the ultimate kill is to go for the neck, the bite on the neck. I don't know exactly why that is. Probably has to do. Why is that? Because it's a very strong controlling position. Not just that Is it the same as jiu-jitsu, you think? Because they get to also choke them out?
It's very much in line with jiu-jitsu. Like lions are famous for using strangulation as their primary method of killing. They get a hold of the neck and hold it until the animal drops.
Plus, claws. I believe the tiger and the bear use their claws.
And the lion too.
The lion, right? And the lion. This is something that the gorilla doesn't do, and anaconda obviously doesn't.
Yeah,
different approach. So what do you think? How do we think about this? Also, there is. I'm just not letting you talk. Apparently, there's levels of aggression in terms of.
These are also very important considerations. Yeah.
What is most important to you?
All the considerations you've raised are very important, and we would have to address them if we're going to go through this topic. First things first, whenever you go into a discussion of this kind, there's a kind of natural impression that we all have as to which one would be the most formidable. And it's important that you become rather skeptical of your first intuitions, because they're often very misleading. Just as every boy thinks his father is the strongest man in the world, and then when he grows up into adulthood, he realizes his father was not even close to being the strongest man in the world. It's not because of anything other than inexperience. To a boy, his father seems overwhelmingly strong. He literally can't even imagine anyone else being stronger than that. So naively, he thinks his father is the strongest man in the world. So too in our relationship with animals. When we look at a silverback gorilla, it just looks overwhelmingly strong to us, to a degree which is almost absurd. Like, you picture the greatest combat athletes that humanity has ever produced. The prime Mike Tyson, Gordon Ryan for grappling. They would literally be torn limb from limb by an angry gorilla. It wouldn't even be remotely competitive. And so there's a sense in which we look at them in awe because of what they could do to us. But that can be very misleading. And just as a boy looks at his father as like the pinnacle of strength, you can't necessarily, from a position of inexperience and weakness, look at a given animal and say, oh, that must be the toughest animal in the animal kingdom. There's levels to this game. And I think we can point out that the gorilla ultimately would be pretty low on those levels, despite the fearsome appearance.
I have some pushback to this analysis because the data, we don't have much data on this. We
actually have slightly more than you think, I believe.
Oh boy. Well, it's anecdotal. I feel like it's out of context. So these species don't use, this is not MMA. They don't do interspecies fighting often.
Yeah, but there are some ways of looking at this which can take this already interesting question and make it a lot more interesting. First, we've seen that intuitions aren't to be trusted. So if intuitions aren't to be trusted, well, what is to be trusted here? Well, I've always believed that there are three general elements that determine what level of success or failure anyone will experience in combat. And this is true both for individuals and for groups and even all the way up to nations. The first is, what are your skills? The second is, what are your physical and mental attributes? So it's skills, attributes. Those are the two primary ones. And there's a third, which is your experience in using those skills and attributes in real world scenarios. Okay, so whenever we'll start with two humans. When two humans get into a fight, ask yourself, what is their skill set? What are their physical and mental attributes? And what is their experience in using those in real world applications? And that will give you your first look at, okay, who's going to be the more successful? Then, in addition to those three general elements, there's also four more specific elements. What is the ability of the combatants to initiate combat? Because initiation is a big deal in fighting. The one who sees the enemy first and can create ambush conditions or initiate combat in an area or a terrain which is favorable to them, this is huge in determining the outcome of battles. Second, not only is initiation important, but disengagement is important. A lot of battles don't go according to plan. And so your ability to disengage at will and break off and away from a battle is key to success. So initiation and disengagement are big. The third big element, what is your ability to end a fight? Okay, do you have an efficient method of ending conflict? Without that, the conflict could go on to a point where you no longer have the ability to continue it. If you have some succinct method of finishing, this is huge in combat and determining winner or loser.
So both from a winning and a losing position?
Yeah, so if you don't have one, there's a much higher chance you'll lose. But if you have an ability to finish an opponent and end the conflict reliably, this is very, very important in determining success or failure. And third is your ability to endure conflict longer than the person you're engaged in. Okay, so engaged with, sorry. And so you get these four more specific elements now. Do you have the ability to initiate contact at will? Do you have the ability to break contact and disengage at will? Do you have the ability to finish your opponent efficiently? And do you have the ability to endure longer than your opponent does? If you have all four of those, that's huge for combat.
That probably applies to human on human,
everything,
military conflict,
everything, even all the way up to nations.
Yeah.
Also ask yourself, what are the most efficient methods of combat across the globe, across all species, all times, et cetera, et cetera? And you'll see that ultimately they always come down to three things. The first is concentration of force. Okay, one of the most successful combat strategies of all time is the ability to take concentrated force against a zone of weakness in your opponent. And if you can do this, you will often break through to a point of vulnerability, attack that vulnerability in a way where your opponent cannot respond and cannot recover from that vulnerable point being broken.
Do a high amount of damage with precision.
Yes. So this is one of the great combat strategies across the animal kingdom, across human history, etc. The second would be ambush tactics. If you can ambush an opponent with the element of surprise, this is huge for success in combat. Almost all of the truly successful predators on this planet are ambush predators. The ability to get off to a good start in a way where opponents simply can't recover is huge for combat.
Are we allowing ambush in our discussion? Because
we'll
humans
talk about this soon.
Would call this cheating, perhaps.
Yes, we would. And although humans are pretty damn good at it too. So, and then the third is endurance. Okay, some species, some people, humans actually are pretty good at this. Use endurance as a weapon, and they simply wear an opponent down over time and break them. And internationally, this can be done economically through numbers, et cetera, and you can destroy someone with just sheer endurance.
Yeah, a lot of wars throughout human history has been siege warfare.
Yeah, and so when you ask yourself, okay, which one of these animals are going to be the most successful in combat, ask yourself, well, there's these three elements which tend to determine success or failure in warfare. Which animals exhibit these three principles the best? And we'll discuss this. But as far as generalities go, whenever you ask a question, who will win between A and B, ask yourself in terms of the light of what we've just discussed. What is their skill set? What are their attributes, both mental and physical? What is their experience in utilizing these in real-world situations? And then the four more tactical elements. Who gets to initiate contact? Can you break off contact at any given time? What is your endurance? Can you keep going longer than your opponent does?
So with skill set, I wonder if a big component of that of how much practice there is
Yes,
off the battlefield.
exactly.
So how much, quote unquote, you would probably call it play, like play
Now,
fighting.
let's start going through our animals. Okay, when you look at the gorilla, you will see immediately that almost every experience a gorilla has of combat is theatrical.
Yes.
They don't engage in killing things. They scare rival males away in order to gain ownership of females. But there is almost no intraspecies death in those conflicts. They're almost entirely theatrical. They have, for example, enormous canine teeth, but there is no record of them ever being used in combat. They appear to be used purely for intimidation purposes. There's a sense in which they have this tremendous appearance and they have tremendous potential. They really do have freakish levels of strength in many different ways, and yet the actual track record of using it is negligible.
It's so strange that evolution would develop such a
Yes,
powerful
it is. It is
killing
a strange
machine.
thing. Like their bite force just makes no sense with regard to what they actually eat.
I think. Well, no, I think they
even
have
the
like,
presence of canines doesn't make a lot of sense. They're not going to use them. What are they?
That's true.
It comes down to this idea of their big thing is intimidation.
So the show, you want to fake it and don't care if you ever make it because fake it is good enough given that particular dynamic.
Now let's contrast that with a male lion. Lions take on the biggest, meanest, toughest animals in the most competitive killing war on planet Earth, which is continental Africa. And they literally just take, I mean, occasionally they lose, but it's rare. And they take out everything. Just in order to eat, they have to take down wildebeest, Cape buffalo. Like Cape buffalo are incredibly dangerous beasts just by themselves. And yet lions regularly take them down. Occasionally, large numbers of lions will even swarm elephant and over 12-hour periods take down elephant on some occasions. This is all on video. This is not just speculation. So they just have a level of combat experience which no other animal can do.
If I were to also project, so the Eastern European style of wrestling, where they spend so many hours on the mat, they really value the number of hours on the mat at play from childhood. The lions probably, from my extensive watching videos on YouTube, they seem to play with each other for fun a lot. And I guess with
even
the gorilla,
as cubs, you see it.
You don't interact, you don't play with other gorillas. You have, like, you're more spending a lot more time around the opposite sex.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, even lions, when they fight each other, the mortality rate when lions fight each other, male lions, for ownership of a pride is very, very high, much, much higher than I believe any other species on Earth. They're almost always fights to the death for the simple reason that when a male lion loses control of a pride, the first act the new lion does is to kill the genetic offspring of the previous male lion. So when a lion fights another male lion, when one male lion fights another, it's not just a fight for his own life, it's a fight for his genetic offspring. And failure means not only does he die, all his offspring dies. And so when they fight, the implications are so deep. It's like a fight for your, not just you, but your DNA. Most male lions have very short runs at the top. They get killed or run off by other lions. Now, this kind of harsh combat experience, no other animal can claim to have this. Between what they kill to eat and what they have to do to defend their stake and a pride, no other animal fights like that. They just bring a level of depth to combat which is unmatched in the animal kingdom. They also have some other elements too, that they get the luxury because of their social nature of taking more risks than other animals. Like a tiger hunts alone. So if it gets injured, it's a big problem. It can die if it's injured. A lion can fight Cape buffalo, get injured, and be covered by the other lions for food until it recovers. So it learns to take risks, and it's not afraid to go out and fight very, very hard. Whereas other animals tend to shy away from risk because they're solitary. Bears are solitary. Tigers are solitary. So they learn from an early age not to take the big risks, to go up to a certain level and stop.
If I could push back, so that's aggression and risk taking. That's a plus for the lion. But to defend the gorilla, because you said skill set, they are, of all of those, the only ones that use tools, have shown to use tools. We didn't say anything about weapons. A gorilla could, in theory, pick up a rock, and it does have the force, the power, and the capabilities to do a lot of damage. It doesn't have the practice. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have the experience. Mm-hmm. But don't you think if a gorilla's back is to the wall, so you put them in a situation of it is life and death for both the lion and the gorilla, don't you value intelligence at least a little bit here? There's a reason why humans, this is like evidence that humans have spread all across the world while being kind of weak. Why?
Okay, intelligence is a huge, huge asset. Humanity is positive proof that it is the most important asset, but it takes time in order to work its magic. It took humans 200,000 years to go from the bottom of the food chain to the top of the food chain. And gorillas have a lot of work to do before they get to that level.
Humans can pass
you said in theory, gorillas could do this, but let's talk about practice now. First off, there are many documented incidents of leopards killing gorillas.
That's anecdotal evidence.
No, it's not anecdotal.
There's a bunch of bitch-ass gorillas walking around. We know this. No, we're asking.
It's not anecdotal. It was observed by a group of people who specialized in observing gorillas over a 12-year period. They regularly found gorilla toes in leopard defecation. They also saw that over a certain period, some 36 gorillas had been killed, and evidence strongly suggested leopard predation was the reason. Apparently, the leopards had figured out that there was a femoral artery in gorillas' legs and were doing a move which, from the sounds of it, sounds a lot like a berimbolo, where they were spinning underneath gorillas and biting the femoral artery and then disengaging and watching them bleed out and die and then eating them. Now, a leopard is no match for a lion. The only defense it has to a lion is to run up a tree. It cannot engage with a lion on anything close to equal terms.
It may seem like we're going on tangents, but we're not, just because of the foot, the attack of the artery on the foot. Is there weaknesses that the lion might have of that?
What I'm saying is, I know it's not equivalent, but the fact that a leopard does so well against even fully grown male gorillas should make you rather suspicious of a gorilla's ability to fight a lion.
Fair enough.
Let's also go further into this. Let's talk about concentration of force. The lion has the quintessential concentration of force, which is fangs and claws. The gorilla is the exact opposite. It can't even make a fist. And so it can only throw open-handed slaps and grab things. So it has no ability with its arms to concentrate force in any kind of efficient way. When a lion or a tiger, or a bear for that matter, swings at you, it's got 4 claws from 4 to 6 inches long. That's like 4 blades going into you. They can retract their claws so they're always sharp.
But the reach is significantly longer for the gorilla. The length of the
ability to engage with speed on the part of the cats is far, far greater.
And also mobility on 2 feet, the bipedal nature of a gorilla. The temporary bipedal. The bear has the same.
It has no impact. Humans are bipedal, and lions kill 240 humans a year on average.
So okay. What about bear?
Now, bear is a different.
Has all the same things that a lion has: the claws, the teeth.
Yeah.
Has more weight. Has more strength. has more power?
Okay, now this is an interesting question. Okay, you get a fully grown North American grizzly versus an African lion. This is an interesting
I
battle.
also have questions about polar bears. It's unclear to me because they're big. They're bigger in every way
Yes.
than a grizzly,
Yes.
but they probably don't get the experience and the practice.
Yeah. Also, they have a much more limited set of animals that they prey upon. So, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure grizzly is going to be tough to beat as far as top bear goes. A grizzly bear, I believe, would be a formidable adversary, even for a male lion. They're literally twice their size. They have an ability to get away from strangleholds by standing up on two legs. So the lion's primary method of killing, which is to strangle, would be very difficult for them to employ upon a bear. Interestingly, the bear's primary method of killing is to pin. It pins animals and then just slowly eats them while they're still alive. They have a rather barbaric means of killing. Lions are much more humane in the way they kill. What I see as the primary problem is that neither one would be able to kill the other.
It's that finishing thing that you mentioned.
Yeah, they would both fail on the finishing criteria. The lion would not be able to strangle a bear. Even in a best case scenario where he got his teeth into the neck, the bear can stand up and presumably shake him off. The bear would never be able to pin a lion for long enough to be able to hold it down and slowly maul it over time the way it can with an elk or a caribou. So I don't believe either would be able to finish the other.
They would just become exhausted.
It would come down to endurance. Now that's where things get interesting, because the bear is much more of an endurance hunter and the lion is much more of an ambush hunter. Lion's quick, explosive, much higher top speed. They've got a top speed of 45 to 50 miles an hour. A bear can do up to 35, but it can run for long periods at up to 25 miles an hour. Very long periods. They're mostly an endurance hunter. They just run elk and moose down until they're exhausted and then pin them and kill them. So if it came down to endurance, it might go the way of the bear if they were caged up together. However, there is very strong evidence from both hunters and video, which shows on many occasions bears being chased off by cougar and wolverines. Now,
what's that? That's fear? What is that? What do you mean chased off?
If they fight over meat, which and say that, for example, the cougar has killed something and the bear wants the meat, the cougar will
the bear has
chase off
risk
the bear.
aversion.
Exactly. The bears are risk averse. What I would say is this: the bears are very, very powerful in their domain, but they don't have the battle experience of a lion. They don't take on animals as tough as a Cape buffalo. They don't take on elephant. What the toughest thing it would probably take on would probably be a bull moose. And a bull moose is a formidable animal, but it's nothing like a Cape buffalo. It's nothing like an elephant or a hippopotamus. So what I would suggest is this: in the wild, I don't believe either one is capable of killing the other. But I do believe, based on video evidence of cougars and wolverines chasing off bears, that a lion would provide enough threat in a brief fight that a bear would back away. If you put them in a cage, however, where neither one could back away, I would slightly favor the bear, based on the fact that neither one can kill each other. It would come down to endurance.
You mean like an octagon?
Yeah. That's got to be the next UFC, by the way. Bear versus
But
lion.
things change. Joe Rogan is a big fan of the idea of fighting in a stadium, for humans fighting in a stadium. So in the stadium, a bear.
I would slightly favor a bear. Now, I still think that the lion would have a chance, but I would favor the bear in a betting match. Some of the best evidence we have for animal versus animal fights come from the ancient Romans, who actually used to put animals in gladiatorial combat. And they, for example, had several incidents where they wrote about tiger versus lion conflict. And in one famous passage, they described a lion getting destroyed by a female tiger. So there's there's some evidence to suggest that they had more expertise of this than we do, because they had a big population of wild animals which they just put to fight each other. Unfortunately, there's nothing that they wrote about bears versus lion. They did talk about bears versus bulls. They did talk about lions versus tigers, but they never mentioned bear versus lion. So we don't have any evidence for that. So we have to be a little bit more speculative. Now, given that bears do get chased off by cougar, and cougar is weak compared with a male lion.
What lesson do you draw from that, by the way?
I would suggest that...
Is it about the bear or is it about the cougar?
It's more about the bear. Like, in theory, a bear should be able to crush a cougar. But it seems to be the bear is just saying, this thing could hurt me, so I'm not going to risk injury, and backs away. I think it would back away in the wild from a lion, but put him in a cage, and I slightly favor the grizzly based on endurance.
So the final conclusion, if you had to just bet everything you own, so you got, let's say, we got the octagon, we bring in a bear. Now this is like legendary bear, okay?
Full-grown grizzly.
Full-grown grizzly, but not only that, that grizzly has seen some shit.
What's the most it could have seen? A bull moose? A caribou? That's the toughest opponents it's ever had.
No, this one once ran into a pack of other grizzlies and had to defend. And he's got scars.
A pack of grizzlies. There's no pack of grizzlies. They're solitary.
Wolves. Wolves are good practice for a bear. Who attacks a bear?
That's my point. Bears don't really live in a competitive environment. Lions do.
But sometimes it can get desperate, as it was a pack of wolves.
But a pack of wolves is that's nothing.
All right, fine.
Lions deal with packs of hyenas.
Okay, what was just imagine, over the past 100 years, what do you think is the hardest fight that a grizzly bear has been in? Like somewhere in Alaska, we never heard. All of a sudden, in the middle of the night, all you hear is the bear just...
Yeah, they don't really... There's nothing that tough.
There's got to have been something. Humans have killed tens of millions of people in wars. They run away from
cougars and wolverines.
No, that's anecdotal evidence. There's got to be one bear.
There's video footage of it. You can watch it yourself.
That's called anecdotal evidence. I guarantee you, in the dark of the night, there was an epic battle of which there's still legend amongst the bears of that part of Canada.
Who did it battle? In Canada?
Moose. Other bears. You don't think they'd go at it?
Yeah, bears fight each other, but it's largely theatrical. They never kill each other. When lions fight each other, they kill each other all the time.
Like that.
Someone would have seen it by now.
Interesting. All right, so you're...
My point is that bears are just... They want to get their feet wet.
You're giving no credit for gorillas, so you're saying lion wins. Your money's on the line.
No, I'm saying lion would win in the wild, because they can't kill each other. They can't end the fight. That's one of our most important criteria. But lions can almost always initiate the action because they have much better ability to see at night, for example. Bears have very average night vision. Lions have superb night vision. So at nighttime, they can always initiate the fight. Lions are natural ambush predators, so it's always going to be able to have the advantage of ambush. The great advantage that bears have is endurance. But bears are very risk averse, and they're not used to fighting like the toughest animals. The toughest animal they fight is a moose or a caribou. These are not even close to the animals that lions have to go up against on a regular basis.
So if somebody wins, it's going to be the lion for you.
I still think that the size and endurance of the bear, if they were locked in a cage together, I would still favor the bear under those circumstances. But in the wild, I believe the bear will back away quickly.
But in the cage, no time limit, you favor the bear. What if it's 5 rounds of 5 minutes? Championship rounds?
Then I would go with the lion, because the lion has a huge speed advantage.
So it's gonna
injure it, tear it up, and do immediate damage. Like, I'll put it this way: if lion and bear fight, first 15 minutes, I favor the lion 100%. But then as time goes by, that size and weight and endurance is going to have an effect.
I'll bring up shortly somebody that's going to probably disagree with you about some things.
Hopefully it's a grizzly bear and he comes in and just eats me.
Oh, that would be so epic.
Make a hell of a podcast.
I wonder who he would eat first. Who would look scarier, more delicious? I'm not sure. The black and white could either piss him off.
He would think you were a penguin.
Is that a good thing or not?
Not good.
If it was a polar bear, maybe it's different. So you
There's
care
no penguins in the North Pole.
deeply about your about athletes you coached, about people in your life. So I have to ask this question: if one of those athletes, let's say Gordon Ryan, now I was the dictator of the world, and this would entertain me, so I force you and Gordon to do this, to fight a bear or a lion. Gordon has to. How would you coach him to do it, to have any chance of winning?
He goes in empty-handed.
Empty-handed. You can choose stadium or cage.
Gordon Ryan, empty-handed versus a lion.
You get to choose lion versus bear. It's up to you.
Okay. My advice would be very simple.
Yeah.
I would say, Gordon, you're fucked. You're going to die badly. Choose the lion because it will strangle you to death rather than pin you down and maul you to death.
Didn't we just talk about audacious goals with Nicholas Murgaugh?
This is not a question of audacious goals. This is a question of minimizing pain.
So you coach your athletes to quit before the battle has been fought.
100%. Yeah.
You don't think he has a chance? You don't think he has a chance?
How? What's he going to do?
You don't think there's a technical, first of all, intelligence. So technical.
What's he going to do? A heel hook?
No, not. Well, first of all, maybe.
He can't do a double. He's got 4 fucking legs.
Okay, what if Gordon gets any starting position he wants?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be really useful. On
you don't think he can have back control?
On a 1,000-pound bear?
Yeah.
What good would back control?
Shaken off?
Shaken off. He'll get torn off.
With what? Like
reaches back. He's got 4 6-inch
it's
claws.
Hard to. Oh, okay. I wonder what is the reach.
Whatever he touches, he's going to.
What if it's not a flexible bear? So you think there's no control? What about like a low, like a some kind of controlling position from? Yeah, like you said, Brambo, like from underneath. Nothing.
This discussion is so insane that I didn't even know where to begin criticism.
I don't think you're open-minded.
We could turn this down. Forget about Gordon fighting a lion or a bear. That's completely impossible. An adult male chimp will destroy Gordon.
So not even a gorilla. What about the aggression? Yeah, the aggression.
A male chimp is more than enough to kill any human on the planet, including Gordon Ryan.
So Gordon Ryan fighting a chimp, a good size.
Dead.
No, 1,000 times. How many times does he win?
He loses 1,000 times. It's not even competitive. It's not even remotely competitive.
Do you think he will disagree?
No.
Okay. Do you think anyone will disagree? Anyone?
Yeah, morons.